Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mavs Party. My name is Kirk Henderson. I'm an editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com and one of the regular co-hosts here at Pod Maverick. The Dallas Mavericks just defeated the Houston Rockets 121-115 about a half hour ago, maybe a little more than an hour at this point. It's about 11:30 at night here in the Central Time Zone. Josh Bowe and I just recorded our regular post-game After Dark podcast where we talked about the Mavericks game for, about a half hour. We also talked a little bit about the news of the Dallas Mavericks impending sale. But what I'd like to do is like to invite anybody that would like to come talk to me here up on the YouTube app here in the comments. There is the ability to click a StreamYard link, which you should be able to join, and then you can come get your takes off. We can talk a little bit of basketball and have a little fun for, at least a half hour. And we will see what's going on. So I think my first guest coming up here, I have my friend Simon joining us once again. Simon, how is the East Coast treating you?
Dude, it's 12:30 on the East Coast. The only reason I'm awake is because I actually played basketball tonight until about 10 o'clock.
I could never sleep after playing. Could never sleep. So yeah, how'd you do?
Yeah. Oh man, I balled out. Yeah, not too,
good to hear.
Regular Tuesday night pickup run. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to start with the game, and then I want to move on to the Cuban news.
Go right ahead.
Touch on that briefly. Okay, so with the game, admittedly, I only watched the fourth quarter of the game. I came home, after I got done playing, and I immediately loaded my NBA League Pass, and I paused it, showered, and got dinner and whatever. And so I watched the final quarter of the game. First thing that comes to mind is like with all the challenges and all that kind of stuff, like I spent most of the time, like while I was eating, just spamming the forward button, just to get through all the challenges that occurred. So the NBA's got to do something about that, because if I was watching that in real time, I don't know, I might have lost interest and gone crazy. But that's kind of another subject. As far as the game, in the fourth quarter, I've been on your stream and kind of talking about Luka and what I've been seeing from him, as far as like why he's having so many turnovers and his sort of lack of initiative in attacking the paint. Well, from what I saw in the fourth quarter, it looked to me like he was determined to get into the paint, to attack mismatches, and then if a double came, that's when he would make a pass, instead of like waiting for the double to come and trying to split the defense with the pass and then getting the ball knocked away. And I know, I saw the box score finish tonight with 0 turnovers. And I haven't watched the rest of the game yet, but I have to assume that, that's at least part of the reason why he didn't turn the ball over, was because he turned up the aggressiveness. And in his case, the more aggressive he is in attacking the paint, typically the less he turns the ball over. So that was a positive sign. I don't know if that is the case in the first 3 quarters.
For just watching the fourth quarter, that's a pretty good assessment of how he played. We talked a little bit about this in the show, Josh and I did, and when he turns the corner on some of these screen and rolls and he gets a guy on his left or right hip, and he sort of slows down to try to see if he can goad that contact, so usually around like the free throw or free throw line extended area, it's not working for him. He's not getting the foul calls because he's a fucking tank. And so to watch him just get all the way into the rim tonight, and I think he doesn't like the contact Not that he's like not seeking out contact. It's just it's game 17 or 18, whatever it is. Does he really want to get hit across the mouth 13 times tonight? Unfortunately,
Sure.
I think with how big and strong he is, he just has to do that. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the league in drives and has for like the past several years, and he's able to withstand it. I think Luka just needs to keep doing it. And I think that the deeper he gets into the teeth of the defense, the more problems it causes. And then if he wants to get cute later in the game, fine, but get to the rim early. Make it a point of emphasis. That's what I hope for, at least. What else did you see?
Yeah, that's when he's at his best. And then moving on to Kyrie, because when I left my run, I just glanced at the box score real quick, and I saw Kyrie was 3 of 13 and was pretty heavy in the negative side in terms of plus minus. But he really does have an ability, even when he's not playing well, to turn it up in the fourth quarter. And I thought he did that. He made some critical shots. But Kyrie's a guy that even when he's not, when his shooting percentages are low or when he's not playing well, you never really, worry about him. You only worry about him when things really go haywire. But in the middle of a game, I never worry about him. Like I said before, I love the way that he plays within this offense. The way he can find his shots, the way he can score at all three levels. How efficient he is, not only just with his percentages, but with his movements and his economy of movement, whatever he's doing. So that was to me that was great to see.
The part that I enjoyed about Kyrie's game tonight was that he was actually rewarded with fouls. He got to the line 9 times.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think at least 2 of those were desperation fouls towards the end of the game. But he's really been getting hosed on calls this year. And part of it is the difficulty of shots that he attempts. Like earlier in the game, he floats sometimes like just a second too long, but when it works, it looks amazing. And then when it doesn't work, it's like, oh no. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, do you follow Andy Bailey on Twitter?
Yes.
Yeah. So he posted a couple stats I thought were interesting. He was went through the top 50 points per game scorers of all time by percentage of points that have come from the free throw line, right? And it was kind of funny that Joel Embiid was in the top 5 with 3 guys who played in the 1950s, and then but Kyrie was in the bottom 5 in terms of top 50 points per game career scores, percentage of points that have come from free throws.
Right.
So
and he's not. And I don't even think his game could he doesn't evoke it the same way like a Damian Lillard does, whereas Dame just gets these. I hate him. Dame gets these foul calls for taking simple pull-up jumpers. It's like, what is happening? Kyrie goes into the lane, twists, does like a somersault in midair, and then like a floating layup and gets broadsided, and then there's nothing. Though tonight he was rewarded. What I find, I'm prone, as everyone knows, to quite extreme in-game reactions. And what I have sort of decided pretty early into this run here, that I love how I feel confident that Kyrie's going to do something fascinating throughout the basketball game. Like, he's never going to have a total stinker. He might only make 2 or 3 shots, but they're going to completely blow the doors off you and that sort of thing. And it's a really interesting, I know he and Luka are kind of co-pilots here, but I like the fact that the Mavericks can get by with Luka doing most of the lifting and then Kyrie coming in and being like an exclamation point.
Yeah, because he really he kind of attacks all the areas on the court that Luka doesn't. But he paints all over. I made this comparison a couple of years ago when it was when him and James Harden were playing for the Nets, whereas James Harden is like a technician and a almost algorithmic, and Kyrie's more of the artist. He just kind of he paints the whole canvas, and I think his sort of basketball ethos won't allow him to go in and seek fouls.
No,
even if it can be to his benefit at times.
Yeah.
But moving on. Like I said, I only watched the fourth quarter, and I didn't see Tim Hardaway at all, which for me was very pleasing because even and I know Tim Hardaway is a very key part of this team, and I'm not trying to take that away from him. They need his spacing, and they need volume shooting from the 3-point line. But there's just something about the way that the guy plays the game that I find distasteful, and I don't enjoy watching him. At all.
I can understand that. I can understand that.
Like you can tell like there are certain times when he brings the ball up the court, like it's just because there are certain guys that I like play pickup with, where it's like it's the same thing. It's like, okay, well, this is going up, like, and you just know it's going up, and no matter what look he's given, he's putting it up. So I was pleased to not see him play tonight.
I hear that.
That may be a little bit unfair.
No, it's not. It was something that I thought he didn't play much in the fourth quarter. It was definitely of note, and I'm kind of curious as to. I'll be interested to see what Brian, who's going to come up here.
So
next
who do they
close?
So they close with Luka, Kyrie, Jones, Lively, and Green. If I recall
right.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jones didn't start tonight, right?
Right. Green did in his stead, and they both played about 30 minutes.
I'm sure Kid gave a very eloquent reason for that.
He'd been so bad. Jones had been so bad on offense, and he just worked better off the bench tonight. So
I guess, yeah, he did. He acquitted himself well in the fourth quarter. Okay, moving on to Cuban. It was actually funny because like my business partner, who is not really a big basketball fan, was like the one who texted me the news about Cuban. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I dug a little bit more into it. And so basically it seems to me the upshot is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure, you're more informed on this than I am. But the upshot is that he's, selling a majority stake in the team to the Adelsons, the Vegas family. He's going to retain operational control, and the ultimate end game here is that he's going to like build a new arena / casino in the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Right.
Is that correct here?
Yeah, I think that's the right read. Right? Like we're gonna know more in a couple of weeks and months and years, but I think that's kind of the play. I mean, this isn't something that's been hidden. They want a new arena. I think it makes financial sense for Mark Cuban to want to own the arena. This injects some liquid into because most billionaires are not liquid. Nobody,
sure.
And we've heard a lot about Cuban's finances over the years. He's on Shark Tank. He talks about these sorts of things. It makes financial sense to do something. He if the team is worth $3.5 billion and he bought it for $280 million, he's doing okay. Like, and the part that we'll find interesting over the years is, what does control of the team really mean? I don't know. I'm really like, I don't want to speculate because that's something that could get me in real trouble. But I just don't think a person that's worth this much money, or a family that's worth this much money, is going to want to, like, they're not going to worry about the day-to-day operations of the team. They're going to wonder, is this team profitable? And I think the Mavericks have turned out that way a lot of the time.
Well, sure. I would imagine that most of the NBA is, even the small market teams with revenue sharing and all that kind of stuff, turn out to be profitable at the end of the day. I think the term that Stein used was operational control, meaning that he's not ceding any authority in terms of basketball operations that he's had ever since he bought the team, even though he may not be the owner, or as the NBA calls it now, governor in name. It looks like, based on what Stein and McMahon or whoever, I guess McMahon aggregated it, but it seems like nothing's going to change in terms of the
No,
the
but
operational
particularly this
structure.
season, that would
No,
this
not
is
this,
like a
but just
long-term
going
play.
forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then like my last point, and this isn't really about Cuban, but it's just about the NBA and sports in general. I'm not an anti-gambling person, and I don't want to make it make this a crusade, but it does seem a little bit distasteful and cynical to me, the extent to which the NFL and NBA in particular have embedded themselves with the gambling companies. It's cynical in the sense that they're trying to squeeze every single dollar out of their consumer base that they can. Because I mean, when you watch, I was watching football yesterday or 2 days ago for the whole day, as I'm wont to do, and I'm not really big into gambling, but you can't watch 5 minutes of a football game without getting an ad for DraftKings or for Caesars or for whatever company, and it seems like the NBA is going down the same path. The NFL has a team in Vegas. It looks like the NBA or the NBA is going the same route. They have the in-season tournament, the final and semifinals, I guess, being played in Las Vegas. So what this means for the future of us as fans, I mean, look, I've thankfully I haven't developed, I've placed bets here and there, but I'm not like the kind of guy. I'm not on DraftKings every day. I do find it interesting in the sense of like reading, seeing the spreads because of the mathematical calculations that go into that, and how they feel about which team is better or not. I find that part of it interesting. But
Right.
Just seeing the way that these leagues have just totally, I mean, like Roger Goodell in 2010, wrote a letter to the, I think, one of the Delaware, the Delaware state government saying the NFL was this is awful. This is horrible. We're never going to sanction this. And they've just totally thrown in. And it seems like the NBA is going down the same route, and Cuban now is going down the same route. It seems like his ultimate ambition is, to build a new arena that's connected to a casino, sort of like how there is in Philly where I used to live. Now there's a casino right next to the link. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it.
I don't have a ton yet. I think that the sense of inevitability, frankly, and everybody's going to make fun of me for this. I'm really stupid about math and betting. And so it's like, I don't talk about it a lot, and I have a hard time learning. And so the money's just there. Like, I keep joking, like there's that, my friend's site, like the All Cities Network, DNVR, Chicago and Phoenix, some of these, it's like, if something like that was to ever open in the state of Texas, it'll be because of gambling money. And so I have a vested interest in that sort of thing. But it's so far off, but hey man, I got to bring up some other folks and then I want to go to bed. Thank you so much for hanging out late with us.
I didn't mean to take too much of your time.
Oh, you're
good.
You're good.
Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks. Of course, Simon. Talk soon.
Yep.
Bye. All right, so we got us Brian, and then we got Roger Staubach. Brian, welcome. What's going on? I can see you're no longer blending into the background because your orange shirt and the brick were going away. So what's going on tonight?
Yeah, I had to change it up when she told me that. Man, a whole lot, like a lot
Okay.
is going on, dude. I hate to disappoint you because you mentioned earlier how you wanted to bring me up because I watched the entire game. Surprise, surprise. I didn't watch a second of the game.
No, you missed a fun one for once because some of these have been painful.
That's my luck, man. When I don't tune in, we beat the Lakers. We beat the Rockets. When I watch,
it's good that you didn't see the Lakers game. That was almost as upsetting as it was so awful to watch the Mavericks nearly die.
I was following the game cast and I was hearing for 3 quarters how perfectly they were playing and how great Josh looked and how amazing Luka was doing distributing the ball. And I just watched the game cast. I was like, Luka Doncic, 26-foot missed jumper. Luka Doncic, 24-foot missed jumper. Luka Doncic. And I said, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And they told me he was doing that ISO ball shit. I was like, man, I was so happy that I wasn't watching that game. I was busy cooking and helping preparing for Thanksgiving. But yeah, no, that wouldn't have done any good for me. But the reason that I wasn't watching the game, so like everything that I know about this game,
Sure.
uh, I pretty much caught on to through following the timeline, following the game cast, doing a bit of box score watching. Uh, Shout out to Josh for like offensively still not really providing a whole lot, but he hit a three. He had 7 boards. He had a block,
You would have
right?
died at this one sequence where it's not that he blew the layups, but he attacked the rim twice, once from the left and once from the right, and left the right-handed one short and then just missed the left-handed one. And it was just like, poor
Well,
guy.
from what I heard, that wasn't even the funniest Josh sequence. Like he was guarding a man. I don't know if it was in the corner or the wing, and he just the ball got into the paint. He decided ball and just ran off, left his man, gave up a layup, and
It
so
was
those
like
are
it was like he was guarding Sengun, but it was after a scramble situation, and him and Luka didn't communicate
okay.
well enough. And like it'd be like me, and I'm looking into the screen here, and if you saw somebody like walk behind me and me not notice whatsoever, and so Sengun got the ball and laid it up, and it was right after the Mavericks had finally taken the lead back from the
Mm-hmm.
Rockets, and it was like, no, I was so mad about it. Then the Mavericks just went to work, and the game was kind of they took control.
Yeah, no, Luka and Kai apparently were awesome to end the game. Derek Lively, God bless him, he's doing his best, but who this whistle?
Yeah.
Who this whistle that he's getting? It is starting to become like a genuine problem. Like I am becoming worried. Like we're not even 20 games in yet, so you know, grain of salt. Like maybe it isn't all that much. Maybe things change as we get further into the season, but
Yeah.
it's getting so bad where I'm like, all right, now this is about to be some self-fulfilling prophecy. Like they hate on Luka because he complains, and he complained so much to the point where some of these like non-whistles become a bit deserved. Then he stops complaining, and they're still not really giving him anything. It's like, all right, well now y'all want Derek Lively to cuss y'all out every game because the fouls that he's getting called for just don't make sense. The way they're interpreting this verticality rule
I mean,
don't
he's
make
getting
sense.
rookied. That's all. There's the only explanation. The offensive fouls I get because they're bad screens, but like most of his things at the rim are kind of toss ups. They always seem to go against him.
And then we'll go like in the other team's favor, like right on the other end, the following possession, like
Yeah.
within the same 25 seconds. So that's annoying. But I ended up not watching the game just because. So I got the news about the sale, right?
Right.
And I saw that, and I had a bunch of. At first, I was doing victory laps, and I was like, "The Wicked Witch of the West, she's gone. I don't ever have to see her again." And they were like, no, Mark is still going to be in control. I was like, okay, well, that's less exciting.
I
And
don't get.
then
I don't get how that one's gonna work. Like that one just strikes of like
not for long. That's how.
a TV level like. I mean, hell, the TV show Dallas, like just some real drama in the future that could go on with that, but that's for another day, not for today.
Look, man, there's one thing Addisons know how to do. It's how to push somebody out of out of an organization they don't want them to be in.
Yeah, but I mean, and we're getting into the weeds here for anybody that doesn't really know, but like there's a at the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to one simple thing: money. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of money to be made. The Adelsons pushed multiple Texas governors to try to push the gambling thing. Gambling in Texas is a weird situation because you're getting multiple strange bedfellows that don't want it together. You have your Oklahoma casino interests, your Louisiana casino interests, your evangelical, like I don't know what you'd call a teetotaler, which is somebody who doesn't drink, but like the gambling version of a teetotaler in like conservative Republicans. Like you have all these weird people that probably don't want gambling to come here. And I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. Like it's not going to be something that we see in like 2 years. I think it's like 5 to 7. And I think they're in it for the long haul. But if I mentioned this in the last show that you were in, there's just so much money to be made. And
Yeah.
and I think that alone is worth the investment for these guys. And I hope that what it will mean is that we're no longer worried about the Mavericks going into the luxury tax or not, because I don't want to say it's chump change, but I mean, it's chump change for people this wealthy.
I mean, it's chump change for them, but dude, I'll just say so. Like I heard about the sale. I had my up and then my down on the roller coaster of thinking that Mark was like fully out, but then find out that he's not. And then I proceed to learn by way of all of my Mavs Twitter mutuals and then some of my friends in Discord, fully against my will, mind you,
Sure.
everything that I now know about Miriam
know.
Adelson and her husband. And dude, I got so depressed. I literally could not turn the game on. I was like, what the fuck is
that sort of thing where it's just like you get into it and it for the people that are, that's one of the problems with being online is like this would have occurred regardless of whatever billionaire ever bought in. I really earnestly believe that. Now we have some people in my site that were like, really, it couldn't be anyone else. And I'm like,
literally anyone else, man.
The marriage of business interests is what comes into play here because it's there, like it's a gambling company. And like I mentioned on the last show, probably won't talk about it too much because hopefully there's not anything to talk about. Hopefully it is sheerly something that is below our wavelength other than Brad Townsend writing the occasional puff piece, because I don't want to know. I don't want to deal with this. I want to watch the basketball. And if gambling comes to Texas and you have to hear my dumb ass give 35 DraftKings live reads about how important it is, all the better, because, I will say this. I'm not a gambling guy. Josh Bowe's not a gambling guy. But when I was in Vegas for Summer League, and granted, it is Vegas, but I was watching a lot of these games and, people start talking to each other. If you're ever at a live sporting event, you hear people chit chat. And I asked, like, every single person around me had like $5 on the game. And it's just like, it's some skin in the game. We're not talking about massive bets. Like what the goal of these gambling companies is to get you to pay attention a little bit more and to like sink $5 on a live bet of like, oh, is LeBron James going to score 8 points this quarter? That's what that stuff is. And maybe we'll see. I mean, but it's such a long way off for us. And I don't, by then maybe I will have been canceled or my wife will have told me I can't podcast anymore. And I won't have to think about this at all.
Look, if the worst that I end up having to think about all of this, like going forward, is just the gambling aspect of it, I would be so pleased. But I fear that will not be the case. I'm, not going to get into details because this is your podcast. This ain't mine. But, excuse me. Yeah, no, this was kind of took the wind out of my sails, but I am glad that the Mavericks won. I'm glad that they bounced back because they needed a bounce back game. Because I don't know what Jason Kidd is talking about. I don't know how anyone is supposed to like speak positively about your team when you get your ass absolutely kicked 3 times in 11 days. And like I get it's like Tim McMahon tax, like so whatever. But yeah, no, we needed this win. I'm glad that we got it. Hopefully we can get into Christmas still fairly high above 500 and, with a decent record, hopefully still be hovering. Like, where are we right now in the standings even? Are we like, what, like
third?
Fifth?
We're third.
Wow.
Right now, I'm pretty sure. That's what I got yelled at on Twitter. It's like you'd find, like somebody was like, of course you find a way to be negative after a game like this. I'm like, no, I found the Jason Kidd, Tim McMahon spat entertaining because the Mavericks had their ass whooped 4 out of their last 6 games, nearly blew a loss to the Lakers. Like, yeah, things aren't on the up and up, but at this exact moment, they are quite literally third in the West, according to ESPN standings. Now there's 3, we're tied with 2 other teams, but I think because I really don't know why we're listed the most up. We're easily, it's so funny. We have a 1.4 win point differential, which is by point differential because we've been blown out so much. We're 7th in the West, according to point differential stuff.
Yeah, that sounds about right because, I can't understand like thumping your chest and stomping your feet about one positive things written about the team after the way the Clippers manhandled us. Like, yeah, no, that'll fuck up your point differential for sure. But hey, look, a win is a win is a win. The record is the record. We're third in the West. I'm gonna take that. And Grant, get it together, brother.
Too much, yeah, he will. We'll see.
I feel like he will.
Thanks so much for joining once again, as always.
Of course, brother. Thanks for having me.
Talk soon. All right, now we have the Roger Staubach coming up. Probably not the Roger Staubach, but I like the handle anyways. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Kirk, can you hear me?
I can. You sound great.
Great, man. Well, I was at the game tonight. This is my first game of the season. It was very, very fun. I was sandwiched between two Rockets fans, and I have a couple of things to share / get your comments on. The first one is Adolis at the game. If it hasn't been talked about already, I feel like he was there to rub it into the Houston fans, and that was kind of awesome.
That's a great point. I did not make the connection between him being at the game and us playing a Houston team. And that's just me being a non-baseball guy because I'm an idiot, but that's fantastic.
Well, he was right on the front row, and he every time I looked down, he was there, and he seemed to be engaged in the game, and it was really cool. I think it fired up Luka. Yeah. So the second thing is I could give a rat's ass about who's buying the team and whatnot. Cuban's still going to be the head of basketball operations. I don't know if that's good, bad, ugly, but I feel like the team is turning a corner with Nico as the GM. I feel like we're putting together the pieces. What do you think about that?
I think that they're in a place where they know the team that they want to build. We're still too small. And that's going to be a thing that continues to haunt the Mavericks this year. But they understand that they're too small. And they're not going to fix this overnight. And so I think that's, there's going to be some really frustrating nights. There just are. We've already had a few in the 6 losses. But I also think there's going to be some pretty awesome wins. And, after not making the playoffs or play-in last year, that's about all I could hope for. You go to the Western Conference Finals and then you don't make the play-in. That's just a brutal fall from grace. So I'm just looking forward to it. I'm trying to enjoy the basketball a little bit more and not be quite such a shit about the game-to-game stuff, but I can't help it some games. But, this season I've just had a good time so far. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. It's been good. And I'll round it out with this. I got to see a 40-plus point Luka performance, very close to a 40-point triple-double Luka performance that resulted in a win against a really decent team. Got to see Luka shout hell no to Brooks after basically smoking him on a drive, which was absolutely incredible. So there was a lot of good things about tonight. I just want to ask you this, and I'm sure you have lots of comments, but as of right now, where we stand, what are your predictions on ending results, ending standings? How many wins are we going to get according to your predictions about where we're at right now? If injuries kind of, if we hold up where we're at.
I mean, I think they have a chance to win 50 games. I think they're going to not win 50 games. I think it's more like 46 to 48. The standings is going to be, the West is always such a jumble, which is why it's important to win these division games. That sort of stuff will end up mattering in the seeding. That's about where I stand right now. I am hoping that the Mavericks avoid the play-in. A top 6 would be massive win for me because I had started the year with, hey, let's make the play-in and see where we go because I'm starting a rookie center for Christ's sakes. And so that there's a lot of growth, but I also think that we're just going to have some really nights where we question why, is this team just truly awful? And so that's just sort of where I've landed right now. It's fun. It's weird. It's different.
Yeah. Well, hey, actually, I'm going to sneak in one more thing. Do you think Cuban kept out the play-in court? The tournament court on purpose because it was so awful, so god awful? Did we ever see designs for it? I'm just really curious about that. Why the tournament court never made an appearance?
2 of Luka's worst turnover games came on tournament courts, and Luka, who is not exactly an excuse maker, was very vocally against it. And I think at a certain point, Cuban might have opted, I'm just guessing, but I think he opted to bite the bullet and not even roll it out and then say there was a defect because his star player didn't like it. That's my take.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kirk, man. I appreciate you. I've been with you since the green room days, pre-Spotify, and I appreciate all that you do and appreciate you being so consistent with hosting these.
I've been worse
hang in
this
there,
year,
man.
but once I hear my baby upstairs crying, I think my wife's going to yell at me because I'm sticking on this show. But that's okay; she understands. But I'll be better about these. I've been pretty bad this season, but I'll get back on the high horse once the season really gets rolling, and if we're having some really fun games and big losses. But thank you for your support. We'll talk soon. All right, coming up next then is my man Krishna. Krishna, what's up, guy? Welcome to the show.
Kirk, how are you?
I'm okay. What can I do for you tonight? What are you thinking?
I'm good. I'm glad we did not talk after the Lakers or the Clippers games.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't know how I would have felt after either of those. I didn't really watch the Clippers game, which I'm very happy I didn't watch that game. But this was an interesting game. I think it says a lot about both teams. I think Houston, they have a very good defense. That's kind of what Udoka has, in his very short coaching career, has put his stamp on, is he wants really good defenses. But Luka has seemingly always done well against Udoka coach defenses. Even in that 1 year in Boston,
Yep.
It felt like Luka had insane games versus them both times. I don't remember if we won both of them. I remember we won the game in Boston that year, but it was a strong matchup. This was the kind of team you needed to face. Houston, they're not a very large team in comparison to most other teams. Like Şengün being their center, I think helped a lot for us. And I think the main narrative would have been going into this game, the fouls, like the foul calling and the referee calling. I'm glad it's not, because that would have sucked. I don't want to talk about referees ever in any game for any sport. And I'm just very glad that's not going to be the narrative going into this game. And it's kind of, I feel like everyone has said this, and not just on Twitter, but just in articles too. It's crazy that Derek Lively is probably the most impactful player on this team. Like, I say that in the sense that if Luka's missing a game, I feel like Kyrie could hold for one game by himself. If Kyrie misses a game, I feel like Luka could do it for one game. If we saw it, Lively missed one game versus the Clippers, he doesn't have a replacement. There's no equal. There's no copycatting.
You're
There's
not,
nothing
you're
like
not
that.
slapping together a facsimile of any of this.
No,
It's,
you're not. And it's crazy that a 19-year-old is doing that, but I think it's impressive, and I'm very thankful that he is, because it's rare. It's really, really rare that we're seeing this. Like, everyone, obviously, like most of the national coverage will go to guys like Chet, because he's obviously insane in his own right. But Chet, I think, is also about a year older now at this point. And you saw it with Simmons, who also missed his first year. Like, it is in a good way, obviously not good like getting the injury, but it's a good thing to miss that first year if you can, because it gives you time to acclimate to the lifestyle of being in the NBA. And so for Lively to not only take the responsibility, but kind of exceed in a way with that responsibility, I think is really, really impressive. And a lot of these calls, I think it's just going to be that this year. I think it's just going to be referees are going to get used to how he defends. They're going to watch him. They're going to see, okay, he's going to do this and that. And it'll be a year or two. I don't think this is like a permanent thing. It's going to be frustrating all year.
sure.
I don't think it'll change at all this year, but it's definitely the one thing that maddened me. But it was good. I felt like everyone pretty much had a good game. Obviously, Grant is struggling. I don't think that's great. But the one thing I felt like was better in this game than the Lakers game that frustrated me a lot was it felt like Kidd went with the hotter hands in the final 4 minutes. He didn't leave Grant on in the final, I think it was final 5 is what it was. And he put Josh and he put Derek Jones Jr., the two guys who were playing way better in that moment, where it felt like in the Lakers game, he just put Tim on for Josh because that was like the lineup he was using. And it went really ISO. I talked about it after that game, but it went really ISO heavy, and it was still ISO heavy in this game. But you felt like if Josh or Derek Jones had to do something, they could. And it's something that I hope we see more of. I'm not sure if we will, but it feels like Kidd is far more trusting of what he sees in the game now than he ever has been, where it felt like before he just had a rotation. He stuck to the rotation. It doesn't really matter what's happening in the game, when the reality is you have to adjust on the fly if you want to win games and win them on a game per game basis. And I think that's positive, really. I don't have much else to take from this game. And I think part of it is, yes, we defended well. I also think Houston is not a very good offensive team.
No.
For as good as Şengün has been, Şengün being your core creator
Green sucks,
has its own
Green sucks.
It's your own limitations at this point. Like
Smith is amazing though.
Who?
Jabari Smith.
Yes, Jabari Smith is great. I think he's great.
I like watching that guy playing basketball. Like I thought he was a bust last year, and then at Summer League he was incredible. They just have some really interesting pieces. So I'm glad we can beat them now and feel good about it, because they concern me.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty smart move for them to get Ime, just because that seems like someone who actually is at least going to give them a structure, which is what you felt like for as much as I like Steven Silas, he was awesome as the Mavs assistant for a while. They needed structure. Like, it was clearly a team that did not know what they were doing on either side of the ball. They were just literally playing like pickup basketball, it felt like. And it's also felt that way when they've drafted. They felt like they just drafted, you have to say, like, what is your ideology when you draft? Is it best player available? Is it fit? And it felt like they always went with the best player available. And it kind of rendered this roster of just supremely talented players that don't necessarily fit well together. And for as much as I still think they've overpaid for Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, I think those were smart for what they needed. They clearly needed those guys more than another team might have needed them. So
sure.
I'll give them credit. Like, they're doing well. I don't think this is this is very early season stuff. Like, it's interesting. Like, we're 17 games in at this point, but like the league, I think, is around average, like 18, 19 games probably. And so all the numbers are always going to be skewed. Like, this is such a small sample size when you compare it to an entire season, which is 82 games for teams, but for players is 70 games or 60 games at least. So It's a third of your sample size, but a third of your sample size is still relatively small in comparison. So I'm not necessarily completely worried. I'm glad that at least the team is showing effort. I hope it's something we continue to see, and maybe it's just the traveling that got to them. It's a little concerning that it did, but it's positive that they came back and they at least responded.
Well, man, thanks for joining us as always.
Thank you. I hope I didn't know if anyone talked about the ownership thing, so I can refrain from talking about it if
we already did a little bit. I mean, there's, I think we need to learn more. I think we need to see what unfolds. I think it's a very interesting thing considering how much Cuban has talked about never selling. Like, he has he made 10 times his investment. So, or at least that's the valuation of the team. And it's like 11 times his initial investment. It's pretty amazing. So,
I think I never really believed him when he said he would never sell.
Right,
I felt like
What are we talking
years? These past few years where he's talking about building an arena, I was like, I think he's going to sell something at least. And
sure,
I have my concerns. I have my reservations because, things are always put on paper and put in plans. And what actually happens is very different. But like you said, this has to, first of all, go through, has to be approved by the league.
Right.
And then obviously the rest of his plans actually have to happen for anything to see. So I'm not going to really comment on it or say anything. I think like everyone, I have concerns and I have positives, and I think that's just how it's going to be. So in the meanwhile, at least hopefully the basketball is good. And you know what? It's been pretty good for as many downturns as there have been. It's been fun. That's what we could not say last year.
Yeah.
We could not say it was fun at all last year. It was only
I think we're going to get kind of bored and tired of the way they lose games. I do think that's going to become very fucking frustrating. But that's what these will hopefully be for. And we can maybe, do some Dalton Trigg style wish casting into the existence. But thanks as always for joining us. All right, man.
Awesome, Kirk. Take care.
Yep. All right. My man Mike is coming up last, and then I'm going to go do baby stuff. Hey, what's up?
What's up, Kirk? How's everything doing?
Everything is pretty good, man. It's a pretty good night. I like writing about wins. I have somehow only covered Mavs wins, so maybe I should write about every game and the Mavs won't lose. But what's going on?
That could work. Continue writing about positive shit.
Right.
It was funny, like, I understand. It's kind of one of those things. I understand both sides of it. It's like we could talk about the end game season, but why do we always have to talk about last year? Like, do we want to know what happened last year? We're starting dudes that are playing 10 minutes. They're averaging 3 points a game and getting cooked wherever they're at.
So I think you're right. I think big picture you are correct, but they are a missed basket away from a 4-game slide that would have felt devastating, like, or a 5-game slide that really would have felt nasty.
Oh yeah, true.
And so that's where like some of the but for now, first 20 games being 11 and I mean it's only 17 games, but being 11-6 feels pretty good. But if they go on like a 4-game slide where they lose each game by double digits at some point in the year, we're going to circle back and be like, well, we just have no idea how good this team is, sort of thing.
No, it's just, I think it's maybe because my expectations were always low.
Yes.
That I like what I'm seeing.
Okay. I like it. That's a good point.
Because like I came into the season saying, to me, I think they would be an 8 seed, possibly a 6 seed, not because they got that much better, but because a lot of these teams that everybody thinks is good, they kind of stink. Yeah. Like I watch a lot of these teams. A lot of people are down bad. Warriors are down bad. Yeah, it's over. This is their 2012 Lakers season.
Yes, it is.
In full effect. But yeah, I just wanted to see improvement, and I think that's what we're seeing now. I'm still shocked about Lively.
Sure.
Like, you couldn't tell me that a 19-year-old kid that was coming off the bench was a one and done was going to impact winning in his first year. That's not normal. Are we in a bad position because of a lot of bad transactions to where we're relying on someone like that? Sure, but just take the good with the bad. So I liked what we saw, and Luka got to drop 41 on Dark Knight, so live with it.
Feels pretty good, man. Feels pretty good about that. All right. Well, as always, I appreciate you joining the show.
Yeah, have a good one, Kirk. Get some sleep.
That's right. All right, guys. We got a two-day break. One of the things that's going to be interesting to see is in Brad Townsend's kind of talking about this right now in his Twitter feed. There's 2 other games that get filled in at some point, and I don't know how it all works. We're going to find it out soon enough. But we'll see. The Mavericks play Friday, Saturday. I want to say it's Memphis and Oklahoma City. Sounds right. We'll probably do at least one of these post-game shows after one of the 2 games. Probably not both, just for my own sanity, but we'll see how it goes. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with me. If you could do me a favor and subscribe and leave a comment on this big-time video at the bottom, always helps me out. If you're listening on a audio-only format, consider joining us on the show here, particularly live. We have fun. You don't have to join the video portion, but it's it's nice talking basketball with people. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out, and we will talk soon. Go Mavs.